T-minus 20 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We finally made it. We finally made our show. Took a little while to do, but we're here. So welcome everybody. Obviously here with my guy Brian. Brian, how you doing?
Good. It's nice to be here. You know, it's been a while, so feels
I
like
know.
football is just around the corner.
Yeah, once the season ends, I feel like we go dark pretty quick. It's just, what are you supposed to do?
Yeah.
Do you have any good times on the 4th?
Oh yeah, there's so many fireworks out here in Utah. So, and since we're right by the side of the mountain, it's easy to just get up to a high area and just see hundreds of fireworks go off. So,
That's actually
how
very
about
nice.
you up there in the Northeast?
It wasn't too bad. It's weird. So I'm originally from Connecticut, grew up there for a long time, and like there was always like fireworks from just like random people. Since I've been in Massachusetts, there is some, but it's not nearly as much as like just like neighborhood fireworks, which I don't mind as much because my dog hates it and I want my son to sleep. So at this point in my life, I'm cool with that. But yeah, I'm a little surprised that there's not like some more like just normal people shooting them off, but I'll take
I
it.
forgot you're old.
Yeah, I'm an old for sure. But all right, why are we here? So, as always, Brian and I like to go through and kind of give you some draft strategy things and topics of what to look for your Scott Fish Bowl drafts and different builds. So for today, we're going to be talking about quarterbacks and some bye week stuff at the end. So to start, just do that quick scoring review because I know a lot of you guys have gone over this and seen it before. So really, the name of the game for quarterbacks is points, points, points. There's no negatives this year, which is really crazy. So you have the 6-point touchdowns and whatever, all that normal stuff. But you get 0.1 per completion, which is going to stack up. And you don't have to worry about interceptions. You don't need to worry about, in point per completion leagues, normally there's, the drawback for the incompletions. You don't have to worry about that either. So everything is just very positive. Which, as you can, start to see in all of the charts that you've seen floating around for, a couple weeks now, it just leads to a massive, massive increase in points. So, Josh Allen last year, 434 points. In Scott Fish Bowl would have been 639. Mahomes, right? Another, 100 something point difference, 140 difference, 170 point difference. Like it's just massive. So, name of the game is you're going to want some big time quarterbacks. And, looking at the points per game thing, you can see Allen at, 40, high 30s. And it's like, wow, that's crazy. The biggest name on here to me is Matt Ryan, all the way there at the bottom, scoring 23 points a game. Matt Ryan. We all remember how he was last year. Didn't exactly set the world on fire, and we're still putting up over 20 points a game. So it's just insane scoring this year. I mean, what are you thinking, Brian? Is this like some of these stuff? Does it just like jump off the page at you?
Yeah, I think it's this and tight end. I think it's hard for people to conceptualize the effect the scoring is going to have. And I kind of dislike it because it's making this even more QB heavy. Like QB is like the first 3 rounds I've like been all QB.
Yeah.
But it's a nice challenge because like that, like no negatives is just insane. And it's really hard to wrap your mind around Matt Ryan being averaging 23.3 points per game.
It's insane.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's so funny to think about. But with that, right, and kind of the real nuts and bolts of what we want to talk about is, what is going to be the draft theory and the way that we kind of view about attacking your draft. So obviously, if you're in the picks 1 through 3, you're set. Mahomes, Allen, Hurts, you're guaranteed just like elite production. But when you start to kind of like zoom out at the quarterback position, it flattens out very quickly. So quarterbacks 10 through 20 there's about a 5 points per game difference, which I understand. Yes, 5 points is 5 points, but it's really not that much when you look at 10 to 20. It really does flatten. So it definitely, I think, lessens the priority of a quarterback too. Like in years past, like the past 2 Scott Fish Bowls with the really heavy negatives, I was very much, you need quarterbacks your first 2 picks, because if you don't have a good quarterback, you're sunk. But this year, I'm not really sure I feel the same about that. You still need to prioritize having a quarterback too. And Brian, I know you're going to talk about that. You want a quarterback too, but you can have a lot more flexibility in your build and in your divisional draft. So having that high end build, I mean, you have that massive points per game bonus. If you could get two quarterback ones, I mean, you're sitting very pretty. But then you do definitely lose out on that, running back, high end tight end, high end wide receiver type thing. So I don't know. Are you interested at all? Like, Brian, you think about maybe in your first 2 picks going quarterback?
It all depends how the draft goes. Like this, I think what Scott has done with the scoring has made it so these drafts are all the leagues are going to be really different.
Yes.
And so if I'm at the end of the draft, I'm at 10. So I'm not planning to have any of these elite guys. I'm definitely not getting Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, Mahomes, or anything. So at 10, I don't think I'm going double quarterback there, especially with one of the reasons I went with 10 is so I could have that early 3rd round pick. But I think I'm wanting to get at least one quarterback in those first 2 picks.
Yeah.
Because as we've shown, like there is that slight tier up. And so if there is one of those guys that I think could get into that solid QB1 level, I'm going to be trying to target those. But again, like I think this more than any year, I'm going to need to just be water and go with how the draft is going. Because I don't think, especially with quarterback, you don't want to rush it with how high the floor is with guys in the past. Like, I mean, Marcus Mariota averaged 25 points per game.
It's so insane. It's insane.
The floor is just insanely high. So I'm going to make sure to keep on telling myself, like, hey, you got to get 2 quarterbacks, but don't rush it because, Jordan Love will be back there. Mac Jones will be back there. So if Matt Ryan can get 23.3 points in this, God, I hope Mac Jones can get 23.3. So
you and me both, man. You and me both. And I think that's one of the biggest things. So now this is my 4th Scott Fish Bowl. I think, fourth. Every divisional draft is so different. Once you start to see that ADP data get out, I think it's Spike Week, or at least they did it last year. Once you start to see like guys like get drafted in the 3rd round versus the 5th round versus 7th round, you're like, what the hell is going on? So understanding, when we're talking about, like you said, you have to be water, and like your quarterback build is going to be so different division by division because just how people are valuing their quarterbacks. And I think when we're going to come back in a couple of days or tomorrow, when we talk about tight ends, it's going to be the same thing. And you're either going to get really, really lucky, or you're going to have to make some reaches on ADP compared to some other divisions based on, again, your division. Where I think we both kind of fall, we're both in, really not looking at that high end build. We're probably more either the mid-level or the hero QB. I'm still really torn between, do I want to have Joe Burrow, Herbert, Jackson, like one of those type guys I'm at 107. So I kind of in play for one of those 3 most likely. And then do I want to kick it to like a round 5 type guy, or round 4 Derek Carr, or do I kick it to round 6, 7, 8, 9 and see what falls? I'm still really torn between that. And a lot of it does have to do because the floor for quarterback 2 is so high. I know you've wavered a little bit with it, and now I think you're starting to lean more towards like an earlier um, quarterback two versus waiting for a Jordan Love or a Mac Jones or someone like that. Where's kind of are you still in that mold? Or are you starting to lean back a little bit more towards hero QB?
It
It's
depends
tough.
on how many. It depends on how many tight ends I want.
Okay. Ooh, I love that.
But I think I'm going more towards the mid. Like I'd like to have two. I think the dream is to have one QB that has mid to high level QB1 in like upside, and
Yep.
then just have one steady guy that I know is going to be solid. So not someone that I'm trying to stream, like not someone that's
Mhm.
filling in for quarterback, but like someone I'm looking at a lot is Kirk Cousins. I think the scoring actually neutralizes rushing quarterbacks a lot. Um, I mean, Kirk Cousins had a top 10 score last year. He scored 52.1 points week 15. Um, and I split up the data looking at it like this. And 95% of his scoring on that week came from passing.
Wow.
And so we like in modern fantasy football, we kind of think like the running quarterback is it. Like that's the guy
Konami
that you
code.
want. Yeah, the Konami code is huge right now, especially with Justin Fields, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, and Josh Allen.
Yeah.
But I think like this would have been the year that like Tom Brady would have just been like he would have been insane because you didn't care about that rushing upside. And so I think trying to find one of those guys that's just like a tier down in
Mhm.
normal rankings, that Scott Fishbowl boosts up.
Yep.
So like even like you like I'm looking at this and like guys like I'm seeing like names that are just insane having high scores. Like Carson Wentz scored 47.1 points. Andy Dalton scored 47.6 points last season.
Hello, Red.
Uh, yeah. And with Andy Dalton scoring that, 90% of his points came from passing. Like he's not needing to be Justin Fields running
Mhm.
for 130 yards, although
Mhm.
that did help him.
Yeah.
And then like Tua, I think Tua Tagovailoa is another excellent example. Week 2 against Baltimore last year, 61.3 points, 98% of those points coming from the passing game. So
Yep.
that's the second highest score, and it had nothing to do with his rushing upside. And
Yeah.
so I think those mid-level guys that can get you that just those big games,
Mhm.
I don't care if they can't rush. I just want one of those guys that is a solid passer, and I'm not really worried about getting benched and is like a solid guy I'm going to have the whole season.
Yeah, and I think Brad, what's up, Brad, in the comments with the point per carry bonus. Yeah, and you're right. Like the rushing quarterbacks, obviously, like they're going to be fine because they have that rushing upside. But the fact that you no longer need that dual threat quarterback to really get those elite level weeks, that's huge. And that's where, yeah, someone like Kirk Cousins or, it's tough. Someone like Derek Carr, like normally I would really like for like a situation like this, but it is a new offense, new coach, right? Stuff like that always kind of worries me. But someone, yeah, Kirk, I think is a fantastic, fantastic pick, and I feel like a lot of the mocks he tends to go somewhere in that third round, or maybe early fourth at the most. But he's a guy that you could really get early and have some really great weeks with Justin Jefferson and one of my mock draft favorites, Jordan Addison. Um,
And yeah, just
so
to just to finish up with what Brad's asking too, because he's asking even with the points per carry bonus, like believe me, I'm a player prop guy. That's what I
yeah,
play all the time. Even Josh Allen, like the top rushers, are not getting more than like 8 to 10 rushes consistently.
mhm,
And so yeah, that's an extra 2 points. But if you're getting a guy that's passing for first down and a completion, a first down and completion is comparable to
mhm,
bonus to points per carry. And so at least from what I've looked at, I think Scott has done an excellent job
mhm.
at kind of equalizing quarterbacks and so that these rushing quarterbacks don't get this huge boost like they do in normal scoring.
Yeah, yeah, agreed. Now, I guess to kind of continue that quarterback two discussion, I know you something that you really want to talk about. Uh, you know, guys to try and target. So I mean, it doesn't have to be specifically Love or Jones or Pickett, Jimmy G, Tannehill, question mark guys. But talk a little bit about that game script piece of it, because I know you had some interesting point on that.
Yeah, so like I said, I'm a player props guy. One of my favorite props to play are passing completions and passing attempts. And one thing I always target with those is games that the quarterback's going to have to be passing a lot. So they're seeing a game script that they're losing and going to have to start passing. There's a lot of times where quarterbacks will pass for over 100 yards in the fourth quarter alone. And so if that's an extra like 6 to 7 completions with an extra 3 to 4 first downs, even more, that's bringing the floor up of a lot of these like lower level guys. So you think guys that are in bad offenses or guys that are on bad teams, their floor just gets boosted a lot because Mahomes is going to get his and Josh Allen's going to get his, but then like Andy Dalton, if they're not good, or not Andy Dalton, who's the I'm thinking Derek Carr because I was thinking New Orleans. If the Saints are not good and Derek Carr's having to pass a lot, if he's just doing little dump offs to Alvin Kamara, he could have pretty much get a whole point just on passing to Alvin Kamara in the fourth quarter, just with those simple dump off completions and getting first downs. So I think that's something that just further emphasizes that the floor on QBs is really high. And I am saying like you need 2 QBs. You are going to be behind if you are not starting a second QB.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that's where like in the past, especially the past 2 years, there would be a lot of draft discussion about, with all the heavy negative scoring, like, is it really worthwhile to have that second quarterback? Is it, it's better just to stream that running back, wide receiver, tight end that doesn't have the quarterback upside, but certainly doesn't have the negative. Again, once you lose that, it's a 100% must, no question about it. And I think that's where you start to really look into the charts about it. Where'd the other chart go? The quarterback scoring here. Let me get the second quarterback up there. Here, Brian, if you want to talk about this one real quick, I'm going to get that second chart back in there.
Yeah, it's just showing, just reinforcing how high the QB scoring is. So you can see the average is right around in like.
Did I just move it on you?
No, you didn't.
Okay.
You're good. It's between 20 and 28. I forget exactly what the average is. But if that's what your average QB is scoring, and like you see, there's a whole cluster between 13 and 31. And so if you're saying that there you go. You got the next one. If you're saying most of your QB scoring between 13 and 31, like that just reinforces you need that second quarterback. But then you look at the skew to it. I mean, there are over 30 times that a QB scored between 37 and 40. The upside is insane. And that like 37 to 40, having that on your team, if that's a QB2 or something, like, and someone's going against putting their 5th wide receiver in that flex spot, you're winning that week. So the upside is just massive. Like you see, Justin Fields has his all the way up there. I believe he scored 68 one week. So that's the 67 to 70. It's all the way on the right. I mean, it's just the scoring's ridiculous. So just further reinforces that you need a second QB. And then I just looked at the weekly points scored for all the QB2s, so the ones that ranked between QB 13 to QB 24, and just look at how high that is. I mean, a QB2 was there's a nice plateau there between 18 to 30. Like you are getting such a high floor with that massive upside. I mean, if your QB2 puts out 45 points a week, like I said before, like good luck to your opponent. Because if they're not starting a quarterback that also can put up 20 to 30 points, they're needing to find that point difference in their wide receivers, tight ends, and running backs. And that's going to be hard to make up.
Yeah. And especially, again, with the name of the game of Scott Fishbowl, it's all about points. Obviously, you want to win your games. That's it's the easiest way to qualify, right, for the playoffs. But the other way to qualify is for your points. So whatever you can do to stack points the best you can, do it. And right, quarterbacks are the absolute best way to do that.
That's a fantastic point that you this is not about winning your weekly matchup.
Yeah.
This is about scoring points, and you cannot forget that.
Yeah. I think before we do the bye week thing real quick, I have I see Brad in the comments talking about still loves taking Kyler in week 8. So I see it a lot, and I feel like there's a lot of people a lot of smart people are on both sides of it. For me, I'm still very torn on Kyler. I think, if you get him 8, 9, 10, whatever, or especially 10 or later, I don't think he's going to last that long. But are you interested at Kyler at all? Maybe round 8 or 9. I mean, his upside obviously is very high. But are you interested with the ACL and the terrible team and everything else?
You're gonna hate my answer, but it all depends on how the draft's going.
Oh, God damn it.
I am interested. I'll tell you, the one person I'm not interested in is whatever that guy's name that's filling in the rookie there. Tune, what's his name?
Oh yeah, Tune. Yeah.
Yeah, I have no interest in drafting guys that are just going to be 1 to 2 week fill-ins at quarterback.
Yeah.
I'm going to pick them up on the waiver. Well, if it gets to like round 18 to 24, I might be throwing darts because the upside is just there.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to be putting my whole strategy around trying to get those type of guys. But I think Kyler, if he can play a half a season and you get him in the 8th round, I think it's worth it. I think if your team build can handle, I think you're going to have to draft a third QB. I think you're going to have to get someone else that you're going to have to lean on. But the upside is just ridiculously high for him.
Yeah. Which I think, looking at your other comment, Brad, I don't know, if you were thinking Herbert, Dak, and then Kyler, I don't know if I would, because then let's say Kyler actually does come back by week 8, week 9, and then every week from then on out, you're trying to, I guess, pick between like Dak or Kyler, or Dak or those three. I think that's when you start to hamstring yourself, because yeah, you have the insurance, but then I don't know. I think it's 6 to 12, half a dozen. It's I don't know.
It sucks because having that third QB on your bench does nothing for you.
Yeah.
And you're wasting with how early quarterbacks being drafted. You're investing a high draft pick into a player probably earlier that is going to be sitting on your bench, and it's all about squeezing the most points out of your team that you can. So you better hope you hit someone late that makes up for you drafting a third quarterback.
Yeah. And especially with playoffs starting week 12, which I guess is a nice little lead into where we're about to go. You definitely need to hit early, because you're going to have almost all of the season, the regular season at least, without Kyler. Possibly. I don't know. I haven't seen anything updated for him on his return date, but I feel like you're looking at, more weeks without him than with him, in regards to, at least, especially the regular season. So to that point, looking at our bye weeks here. So the playoffs in Scott Fishbowl starting it's week 12. Then it's like a 10% cut. Then week 13 is another 10% cut. And so week 12, right, no one's on bye, which doesn't make any sense when you have like 8 teams on bye in week 13. But, the NFL is all-knowing. I hate Goodell. But when you look at week 13, Baltimore Ravens, Buffalo Bills, the Bears, the Vikings, Giants, Raiders. I mean, you have some very, very big name guys on a bye once you're starting to get really into the playoffs. And, I think that is something that can potentially look very scary. But Brian, why is that not scary?
It's because those guys are already baked into your team. Like, I'll use the Minnesota Vikings as an example, because if you're taking Justin Jefferson, you're accepting that you're going to not have him for the second week of the playoffs. But the thing that you'll have the advantage of, you'll have had Justin Jefferson for 12 weeks.
Yes.
And so let's just say he averages 20 points per game. So you're getting 20 points per game because of the average added in to playoffs. So you're getting that versus having to possibly be down to, like, if it was someone that was just a lower tier scoring maybe 16 points a game because they had to have one, like you had them on a bye, and so you don't get as many points out of them. It limits your ceiling because you can't have Justin Jefferson go off for 45, but it does give you a nice floor in that you had Justin Jefferson for so long that you've had a wide receiver one on your team, and so your average points are going to be higher.
Yeah, and I think that's the key, right? It limits your ceiling for week 13 only. But again, reminder, or if you don't know, the way that the playoffs work, it's your season average plus whatever you score that week. So those week 13 buys, if anything, it's not that it's a benefit because you don't have them that week, but you have all 12 games, as long as, healthy, right? You have the entire season to build up that points per game average versus like, if you take, what's a decent quarterback here that I can say, Mahomes, right? You're one less game of Mahomes than you do for like Lamar Jackson, for example. Like, so all of that stuff, like, don't be afraid of the week 13 bye because you really have a really great benefit of having the entire season to build up a massive base for your playoff run. And again, that's what matters. It's all based off points. So wins and losses aren't a thing to really focus on.
I'm not going to say it doesn't suck. Like, it sucks you're going to be without, like, there are some good players, especially with this quarterback scoring. Being without Lamar, Josh Allen, Justin Fields, and like I said, Kirk Cousins is someone I'm also looking at. He's obviously not on the same tier as those first three guys. It's going to suck. It's going to suck. But I'm not changing my draft strategy based on buys. I think that's just I think you're thinking a little too hard.
Yeah, especially with the way that the playoffs work in Scott Fishbowl. If it was different, then I'd understand it. If it was just a straight up whatever your points are that week, that's what it is, then that would be scary. But it's not, so it's not something you have to worry about.
I think that brings us to a final last point to talk about is we've mentioned over and over again that like, oh, Scott Fishbowl is different, like Scott Fishbowl is different. This is all different. The scoring is different. This format is different. There is such an edge. And I think quarterback is maybe the second most important for knowing this edge and knowing the scoring. That if you are not familiar with the scoring and you're playing it like normal PPR, playing like normal anything, you are going to get behind and you are not going to do well in your draft, as well as people who know the scoring, know what's going on, and are familiar with what's going on. So if this is your first year at Scott Fishbowl, read up. Make sure you're talking to league mates. Make sure you can send me and Dan DMs. I've been in it for 3 years. Dan's been in it for 4. Make sure you're familiar with it because if you are not familiar with the scoring, you are going to have a bad draft and it's going to get you out of the playoffs early.
Yeah. Yep. So a lot of content is out there. Obviously not just us. There's a lot of great people doing a lot of great stuff. Definitely read up for as much as you possibly can for it and prepare as much as you can. So tomorrow night, Brian and I will be back. We're going to be talking about running backs and tight ends, two massive boosted, positions, especially the latter one there. And then Friday, we're going to do a quick 3 shows. Friday, we're going to be talking about wide receivers. We're going to look at a mock draft and kind of review of what picks we like, what players we like, what value we like. And kind of wrap it all up there. So it's a quick 3 shows, about 30 minutes each. We're coming in right under 30, so we're doing pretty good jobs with that. And that's what we're looking at.
We got a question.
Let's see. Who are some of your later round QBs to take you play as QB2? So this is something that, it's for me, it really depends on how long you want to push it. And how comfortable with it. It's not that I love the idea of it, but someone frankly like a Mac Jones, if you really wanted to like push a little bit later, I think is a very safe 20 to 25 points a game.
I think Mac Jones, I think he is going to be a great pick. And I hate it because I think he's going to start sneaking up draft boards. I view him kind of like I think Derek Carr was in the last few years where like he was just a safe option that then people were like, oh, he's a safe option. I'm start drafting him early. But I think Mac Jones is an excellent pick. I also like some of the rookies. I like Stroud going pretty late, and Bryce Young is going pretty late too. Without the negative scoring, I think you're not going to get penalized for them being rookies.
Yeah,
and I don't think they're two excellent QBs who they don't have the best receiving cores around them, but I mean they're going to have to throw it. And like I said, as long as the guys are throwing it, getting a few completions and getting some first downs, their floor is going to be high.
Yeah. I know some other names. I feel like Matt Stafford is being very overlooked because of the injury. But you think Stafford's back and healthy and with a healthy cup, I think that's someone that seems to be going around round 8-ish, 7, 8-ish, 6, 7, 8, somewhere around there. I think there's some nice value or potential value there. Jordan Love, I know Jordan Love is actually someone that Brian and I have like spoken about just in the DMs, because even if he's not the greatest quarterback ever, there's literally no one behind him in Green Bay. The only way he's not the starter for the entire season is if he gets hurt. There's no one back there. So, someone like Kenny Pickett, I don't mind Kenny Pickett. Again, he's honestly probably very similar to like the Mac Jones, where honestly their upside is not super high. Like they don't have that type of ceiling, but they should be pretty consistent, with just the 20 to 25 type points, 20 to 25.
So I have a question for you.
Tannehill.
Are you going to handcuff quarterbacks?
No.
Why not?
Yeah. I mean, like, who would you go? Like Brock Purdy, Trey Lance? Like, who would you?
No, I mean like a true handcuff. Like, I do not know backup quarterbacks off the top of my head.
Oh, so like if I went Mac Jones and then Jesus Christ. Yeah.
So if you select Patrick Mahomes, whoever his quarterback, because it's not Chad Henne anymore because he retired.
Oh yeah, who was it there?
Whoever. So honestly, I think you might want to prioritize handcuffing a quarterback.
Oh, it's Blaine Gabbert. Wow.
Oh wow.
Good for him.
Yeah, I think handcuffing is something that you're gonna want to do, or handcuffing. As JJ Zacharyson always talks about this, if you are going to handcuff other people's running back or other people's backups.
Yeah.
So never handcuff the same backfield, but like don't handcuff the same quarterback. So maybe if you do have Joe Burrow, like get whoever Jalen Hurts backup is, or maybe just get the handcuffs for some of these running quarterbacks because
Gardner Minshew, I don't mind that. Huntley, late. Yep, I like that one too.
Yeah, and like obviously not drafting these guys early, but I mean, there's no one that has upside like a quarterback. So
yeah, this could actually be the draft in the rounds, 2021, 22 to take some of those random the best backups in the NFL and see what happens. Because even if Hurts doesn't get traded, if a big name guy does, maybe they go trade the Eagles for Gardner or something like that. So I could okay.
I just haven't thought of handcuffing, and when we're talking about how valuable quarterbacks are, that naturally kind of comes into it. So
yeah, and then there is some very like weird, obscure quarterback rooms too, like San Francisco's obscure Purdy, Darnold, Nance, Washington.
I'm staying away from those. God, that the draft position I've seen, those I just don't think those are worth it.
Oh, here's interesting enough. I'm looking up random mocks right now on for Scott Fishbowl, and a team took Baker round 15 and then Kyle Trask, who's his backup, or in round 18. Interesting. Interesting.
That truly is a late round quarterback. Man, I would get so much heartburn drafting that team.
Yeah, it'd be rough. Oh, that's right. Gardner is with Indy now. You're right. I forgot. Yeah. Gardner's with Indy. Actually, I like that a lot because I don't know if I'm an Anthony Richardson fan. So I might be targeting Gardner. I know you're not an Anthony Richardson fan.
Do I need to post a clip?
I love that clip. All right. So I think that's everything on our end. Again, Big shout out to Scott Fish for, again, putting this whole thing on and doing a great job with, Fantasy Cares and doing a great thing. So at the end of the day, again, remember, this is all for charity. So have fun with it, enjoy it. Try to win, because again, it's fun to win, but we're all in this to have fun and do something good. So do something good out there, everybody.
Yep.
Peace.
Adios.